When we're fishing, we fish doubled up 900. Obviously, it's not quite to scale. A lot bigger hooks, a lot heavier mono. But this is pretty much our leader's about that long, doubled back, and then we fish about a 6 foot.
So
leader.
you got a long line clip going to the main line, or
we put 2 crimps where it's doubled back, and then we have about 5 foot that's not doubled back up to a snap that goes on the main line.
Oh, that's cool. Can I see?
Yeah.
Can I
It's all
see?
fished right on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, that's
Fish right on the
awesome.
bottom.
Here you go. Whatever, dude.
divers.
Divers.
Kind of bad here.
A 1500 King Ranch. A bighorn. I'm sorry.
bighorn?
I just
Yeah,
bought the bighorn.
I like the big horns.
Yeah,
man.
I had the same truck as Pat not too long ago, and I blew the cam in it. But
Oh, you did?
I'm a Dodge guy all the way. So
Yeah, right on. What kind of Dodge you have?
The Hemi, Sport Hemi,
Yeah, nice.
5.7, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, 5.7.
5.7.
5.7.
Yeah.
He's got
I
a
got the
murdered
egg
out
beater.
one, the all black one.
I got the little fucking egg beater.
Well, yeah, I got the Rebel.
Right on.
Love that thing. So anyway, we're gonna open up on that, right? Because this is welcome to the Connected by Water podcast presented by Joey Accardi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. We're just talking about all of our Ram trucks, right? And all Ram owners in here except for this guy. So he's had a. We're not gonna say.
We'll hold that against him.
Yeah. So if you're in the market for a truck, go see Joey. Go see the salesman at Joey's dealership. You can go see Dean. You can go see the sales manager. Tell him we sent you. We're not going to go too long into the ads today. We're going to kind of just get right into it, right?
Important.
Yeah, very important. So this is a follow-up episode to the one we had a couple of weeks ago. Joining us again today is Captain Patrick Price, Daymaker Charters. And we brought along a special guest, Thomas Osburn, right?
Sure,
man.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks
driving
for
down
having me.
south to hang out with us for a little bit. And as always, we have show regular Captain Art Sapp with us here. It's the Captain Art Sapp show now. I think he comes in so many times. So, Thomas, you're a commercial shark fisherman.
Yep.
You do it for a living. You're on the water all the time, every day doing this. So we're going to unequivocally call you an expert on this topic. And you recently had something happen to you. We can probably get right into that, I think, right off the bat, and kind of talk about the elephant in the room. You had something happen to you recently that was quite unfortunate. People messing with your livelihood.
Yep.
And done some damage to your business. And you want to take us through that episode?
Well, we're fishing a federal sandbar shark permit, and I had answered some calls to a bunch of recreational and commercial fishermen to come further south than I had been fishing. And I was down fishing off of Jupiter Inlet pretty much. And we had an interaction with a dive boat who basically just took a bunch of my gear and plastered it all over social media that it was illegal gear. I have a federal researcher on the boat. I'm a designated federal research vessel doing this research for NOAA. And they just basically took it upon themselves to confiscate all my gear.
Right.
And cut it to pieces and release the fish that were on the gear and impede federal research.
That's crazy. And it's kind of like, one of those people, they attack you without knowing all the facts, right?
Well, no, don't go there. In my opinion, they absolutely knew through social media and the work that we've been trying to do.
I believe they did.
They knew exactly what they were doing, knew the gear was going to be there, went there to do exactly what they did, and premeditated murder, first degree murder, premeditated crime against Thomas here in his shark operation, in my opinion.
I believe they had another boat watching bird dogging me because I knew there was going to be interaction, and I kept a close eye on my polyball and my gear, which obviously I can't keep an eye on both ends. It's 6 miles of gear, and
6 miles. Wow.
And I had another.
Dude, that's
boat.
a short set in reality, though.
No, that's a very short set.
Well,
it's because I'm so target specific, and I release anything that I'm not supposed to have on the gear. That we wanted to release it in 100% the best quality we can.
Absolutely.
You're limited on the number of hooks in that stretch too, right?
Absolutely. We've because of the research permit, we can only fish 300 hooks to a set. And we stretch them out as far as we can, but we keep everything we catch, but we obviously return everything that we don't. And the hooks themselves are huge gear, so we don't have much interaction with anything we're not supposed to. We put it in places where there's not any other bottom fish. We keep it off of any kind of hard bottom. It's very, very, very target specific. And for this boat to come in and to do what they did, they had to know where I was. They had another boat, I believe, watching me bird dog my ball. I hooked up to my gear and I started hauling my gear, and I actually had somebody call me and tell me that right before I hooked up to my gear, call me and tell me that they were that a dive boat had come in Jupiter Inlet with a bunch of longline gear, was wondering if it was my gear, and I said, no, it's not my gear. I said, I'm looking at my ball. I hooked up, started hauling, and I got about a quarter mile into it, and I get parted off, which is not an uncommon occurrence shark fishing. I mean, I get parted off, I grapple my gear up, and when I came into the wheelhouse to run down my gear a little bit to put the grapple out, Facebook and social media just exploded with everything that was going on. And once I started looking at the pictures that were posted, you could tell it was my gear without question. I used dumbbell weights to hold my gear to the bottom, and I just bought a whole bunch of weights from Dick's Sporting Goods that were purple and red. And if you look at the pictures, you can see a stack of purple and red weights in the background, and people throwing up big smiles and peace signs. And
yeah, they were proud of that.
Yeah, they were super proud of it, And not only that, then they called FWC. They took it upon themselves to call FWC, who ran out to my boat and made me aware of what was going on. And in that case, I jumped on FWC officer as soon as he jumped on my boat, stating that I had a federal observer on the boat. This is ridiculous. Well, then once they went through and found out everything that I'm doing is 100% above the law, they went and took actions in their hands against the dive boat.
Yep. And that's the interesting thing you just said, and I was well aware before anyway, but the fact that you're intentionally setting in primarily sand bottom, away from hard bottom.
Yep.
There is no reason that those divers were there other than to find that gear. You're not going diving over sand bottom for fun.
No, I wasn't setting on anything that anybody should have just been recreational diving on for no reason. No reason.
Yeah, you're not paying money to go swim in sand. No, you're looking at rocks and pretty fish if you're paying money to go diving, right?
Right.
These guys had intent, malintent.
Absolutely.
This whole activist attitude just drives me up a wall.
Like,
you know
it didn't used to. It used to be a good thing. Something bad was happening, and you took action. Now, good things are happening, and they're taking action against them. Yeah, these activists, they're stealing all the environmentalist term gone.
Right,
activist gone. Yeah. Can't do it. Oh, whatever.
Oh, I call them eco-terrorists.
Yep, pretty much
eco-terrorists.
Absolutely.
Well, it's kind of, and not to get too political about the whole thing, but it's a direct reflection of like all the other crap that's going on in the country too. People just blindly being upset and doing stupid things, and they don't even know why they're doing them.
Yep. No
Crazy.
doubt.
That's what we were talking about on the way out. We wonder how many people on the dive boat maybe actually knew what they were doing was illegal, or they just thought they were doing something cool because somebody told them to do it.
I think that's my point. Yeah, that's really my point right there.
And I wasn't there, so I don't know the situation, but I could see just the way our world's going now that one guy on the boat knew it was illegal, and he told all the little college kids or whoever that went down there to save the shark and cut the illegal gear apart, knew that it was legal, thought they were going to get away with it. Yep. And now they've got a mess on their hands.
Right. This is why they're probably taking the pictures. And like, look at the great thing that we did.
Oh yeah, they're smiling, happy as can be. Yeah, happy as can be, smiling, laughing.
And I find it funny. So they made some post on there about what was on his gear: 11 tiger sharks, seven Goliath groupers that they cut loose. You know that any one of them dive operations, you look at their Facebook pages. What do they always have when they're with them?
The cameras.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you going to tell me that they didn't have camenes to show what they released? All these endangered,
if they saw that, they
protected animals. Oh, no doubt.
One of their big focuses was the amount of tiger sharks on our gear, and my comeback to them was, why don't you talk to my observer and find out all the tag numbers on all those big tiger sharks that we measured, girthed, sexed, and tagged and released. Yep. So how is that saving? I'm doing actual federal research. You cutting them off my gear had nothing to do with research. Had nothing to do with saving a species. Right. Nothing at all.
Yep.
Ignorance.
Yep.
It's ignorance.
If they were actually there, which
they weren't there. I mean, there might have been several of them there, but like you said, there's cameras. They all have cameras everywhere. They are is pictures, and it's all unstated. It's.
Yep. So what did that cost you?
It cost me in the neighborhood of about $5,000. And that's just in gear. That's not in time, fuel,
the effort of setting.
Right. It's just all of it. And,
lost revenue.
Yeah, lost revenue. Time. My family took money or took food out of my family's mouth, out of my crew's mouth, out of my crew's family's mouth. Canceled one research permit because we're only allowed a certain number of research trips a year. So it canceled out one whole trip for us.
Yep. And there's no redeeming that trip.
No, none at all.
Yeah, because I guess those baits went in the water, so the fish.
He fished. He still got a quarter of his setback. So
by research standards, I still was able to fish. I mean, I did finish the trip with a small piece of gear and went a little further north and put gear back in the water and made the best of what I could.
So, for the benefit of the audience, go through a little bit about the research that you do and the statistics that you take. I mean,
okay, well,
like what is that? Where's that being used? How's that being used? Because I want people to realize that what they're affecting.
What I do is it's federal stock assessment for sandbar sharks. Sandbar sharks have been protected commercially since early 2000. I'm not sure the exact year. They were very heavily overfished in the early 80s and 90s, and there was a ton of boats that targeted sandbar sharks. In the early 80s, the government pushed sandbar shark fishing as an underexploited fishery for commercial fishermen. Once everybody found out about a fin market and meat market, and the thing is everybody thinks the money's made from the fins. The fins are not the money. The money is in the meat. You take a 200-pound shark and he has 3 pounds of fins on him. I get $20 a pound for the fins. That same 200-pound shark, I get $1 a pound for his meat. So who kicks over a $200 bill for $60? It's ridiculous. If you watch Discovery Channel and all that, you obviously get a feel for finning sharks. That's not what we do. My permit is directed at sandbar shark stock assessment. I'm allowed to make I make 2 sets a trip. One of them consists of 150 hooks. The other consists of 300 hooks. I'm allowed to fish certain areas. This permit is good from basically Cape Canaveral to Jupiter Inlet is where I fish. Excuse me. They take all that data in. They take in reproductive organs. They take in stomach samples to find out what they're eating. They take vertebrae samples to find out how old the sharks are. It's just like a tree. There's rings on a vertebrae to tell how old the sharks are. And all this gets submitted, and some of the info that we've been pushing for sandbars, limited opening on sandbars for the last 5 or 6 years because of the explosion in population. These sharks have been not fished for 10, 12 years, not at all. And they're in a hyper reproductive mode, which I believe is where they're going out of control because they were so overfished. Just nature in general has taught these fish to control their own balance. When they took it away, these fish just went absolutely ballistic in population.
Much like the red snapper.
Just like the red snapper. And I can get into the red snapper at another date, but the sandbars are just out of control. They're out of control.
We definitely don't have to wait till 2070 for them to
No, not at all. They're so out of control right now that like everybody has said, that you can't hardly get a fish to the boat. Commercial, recreational, sport fish guys, everybody's having problems with these fish. And it's not just the shark diving and the shark feeders are creating hot spots. And there is a resident population of sharks, but there's a biomass of these sharks that move up and down the East Coast. And everywhere you go, it's the same thing. I have a bunch of commercial dive buddies that are in North Florida, and for the last few years, they've said they've not seen many sharks. And prior to the last 5 or 6 years, he said now as soon as they hit the water, there's 10 sharks.
Right. Yep.
And they're super aggressive. They're not just there checking out. They're not just there swimming around. They're in their face. They're and they're in a pack mentality. There's multiple sharks.
And you obviously have to be seeing a rise in your numbers.
Oh, everywhere I go, I produce over 300,000 pounds of large coastal sharks a year. I'm pretty much one of the only full-time shark boats left on the East Coast of the United States. My target species is black tips, bulls, and lemons. Obviously, I catch 40,000 pounds of sandbar sharks with each permit. But there's the more I catch, the more show up.
Yeah,
it's pretty ridiculous.
And dude, it's all the way to Key West too. In reality,
it's all the way into the Northern Gulf, into Mississippi, Louisiana. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Man,
and we're hearing Caribbean too. Although they're not sandbars down in the Caribbean that we're hearing about causing issues, but shark populations in the South Atlantic is what they call it. It's not, but it's what our government calls it.
Right,
is exploding in insane numbers.
Well, anywhere that the Coast Guard can get to, the United States Coast Guard, our regulations in the United States for shark fishing are some of the tightest regulations in the world of any fishery. You watch on TV about the bluefin fishery being the most regulated, and it's not, and yes, they are very regulated, but I would love for somebody to come on the boat with me and see the regulations we have. The way we used to butcher shark on boat, we can't do anymore. The fins have to be naturally attached. We have to handle each shark 3 times before they actually make it to the scale. From on the boat, we head them and butcher them, and this is all to produce a food grade fish. Sure, anybody can throw a fish in a fish hole, and that's where it sits. We try to produce the best product possible for the public, and that's where we gut them, we bleed them, we head them, put them directly on a slush brine. We have to take them out of the dock. We can't fin them or trim them or finish trimming them out on the boat. We have to take them off the boat on the dock, then trim them. It's a lot just because of regulations, mainly because environmentalist groups and because of everything you see about
that word again, environmentalists.
Yeah. And because of everything that's been pushed about the shark finning problem, and we pay the price for it. We pay the price for other countries. We pay the price for
that's weird. I'm in the regulatory process a little bit here with the council, and generally any rules we place, there's legit reason. It's been discussed and argued, and I mean at length, at nauseum. It goes on for years frequently.
Right.
I don't understand you not being able to finish trimming until it's on the dock.
We don't understand it either.
So something interesting. I had a conversation with Timmy Palmer the other day, and Tim Pickett took over his seat on the HMS.
Both excellent
guys, and Tim had a lot to say. But we had this conversation on the way down, talking about the hammerheads, and he was telling me a little bit about the fishery. Timmy was. And said, we stopped keeping the hammerheads because their only value was the fin, but you had to keep the core to have the fin on the boat, and the core took up too much room and too much ice. I'm just wondering if the regulation is there to make it easy if you ever got pulled over, that you didn't have a pile of pins, you had to come out and put pieces of puzzle together, right, to see, does this fin match this shark? Was it cut off this one? Did you have more
that part
fins?
I understand.
That's part of it.
That's not all the trimming work he's talking about.
No, that's not all the trimming work.
Okay.
But that's also a big part of it, is so that each fin matches a shark. But before this regulation came into effect, we had to have a core to match each fin.
Right.
Well, then there was lack of knowledge in how to identify shark fins and to cores. And that's how the whole naturally attached thing came into play.
That part I understand.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But the finish trim work, though.
No, the belly flapping, everything. And then not to be able to do it once I'm tied to the dock, I have to take the fish off the boat, onto the dock in order to cut the fins off.
You think as you're pulling them out of the hold, all right, finish trim work on what? Okay.
No, I know that's one of our biggest beefs is why can't we do it right? We're tied to the dock. Our trip is obviously landed. I'm not going to catch another shark tied to the dock.
Well, bet me. You catch all the bull sharks you want tied to the dock right now. They're so thick in the ICW.
I was going to say, come to Sailfish Marina.
Anywhere you want. Dude, my backyard, it's ridiculous.
No, they're everywhere.
So, let's bring up real quick the Taxman page, right? So,
I'm going to take blame on this one because normally I'm so hypersensitive and I should have caught it, but so much going on here lately, the sportsman aspect of it. Normally I catch that. Normally I see that, and I didn't as we were discussing.
Sportsman versus fisherman.
Well,
I think we wanted to include divers,
right?
But at first when we were saying that.
So
I still like the Taxman Regulation Coalition, but that's just me.
I get it. So I mean, we had 10 people that we deliberated, went back and forth, and it's like when I go out to dinner with my family and I ask my wife and kid where they want to go, and they say they don't care, and then I suggest a place and they don't want to go there. Well, there was 10 of us that were essentially doing the same thing. We didn't have a majority say one was better than the other. Everybody had their own suggestions. It was getting to a point where we were making these moves. I was responsible for starting the page, so I made a decision.
Which was a good decision.
I made a decision because I thought sportsmen encompassed all marine fishermen and divers. Right. I didn't think it excluded one group. I now understand the position based on years of bad blood in the past. Guess what? No. I can't do anything about it for 28 days. So we can either continue to push forward as one united group,
which we absolutely should,
and have the common goal, which we're up against a pretty big wall as I'm starting to learn here.
Yeah.
And that it's going to take everybody. It's going to take everybody that wants to have a bad attitude and complain about something to put that in a letter and complain about the shark problem. Otherwise, get off the page.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to take away from people's time that are trying to be constructive and are putting forth the effort to make a positive movement forward. And that includes commercial, recreational, conservation-minded organizations, fishermen, and divers. It all encompasses one. People told me waterman. You know, I Googled the word waterman. To me, that does not apply at all. It's something about an oarsman.
That's
an
a
oarsman from the 1900s.
Yeah, waterman's more.
You know,
it's like all inclusive, like fishermen and canoers and surfers, and it's like from Hawaii. It's more like when you say waterman, that's generally what you
it's
mean.
Big in the Mid-Atlantic too.
Whatever. So I took blame for making the decision. I made the decision. It is what it is at this point. We can move on. We can change the name in 28 days.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up just to kind of clear the air and be like, guys, don't focus on the name. Focus on the problem.
That's kind of what I was trying to do. To my sector of it is a lot of it was my sector and bad blood, hard feelings because of the past and stuff. And I've tried to push that this should be a stepping stone for us all to come together and work towards not just the sharks, but future of all of us working together. There is a sustainable harvest of every species. Yep. And it's all about working together, not one group getting more, one group getting less, us fighting each other. If everybody can come together, we can fight the people that are really trying to take it away from us.
The environmentalists.
The
amount of money they have
is ridiculous.
Dwarfs us.
Is ridiculous. Especially if we're divided. Especially if commercial and sport and recreational are all divided.
That's really why I think legislation is the only way that we're going to win this battle, but I know it's going to be very tough.
Dude, even if for some stupid reason, which will never happen, that they allowed a recreational harvest of sandbar sharks, we could never do the damage that Thomas does on his own.
That 10 of them could do.
The one.
Yeah. And it's not. And I'm gonna stop you there. It's not even about it's not about doing damage. It's about controlling a species.
Right.
And that's kind of where words get construed. No. That's where kind of words get construed as far as where I'm concerned is I'm so target specific and so dedicated to what I do. I can promise you guys, you're not gonna find somebody more attracted to or adamant about sharks than myself. I absolutely respect the species. I think they're the most amazing fish in the ocean, which is why I've chose to fish for them. Yep. And just
it's a good point to
definitely poor choice of words there. The numbers, I guess, would have been a better word.
And we can control it. A matter of 300 hooks and me being able to do something with the fish is controlling the species.
Absolutely.
And if I'm allowed to have 25 sandbars a trip on top of my regular on top of the regular large coastals that I can have, we can control the species. We can actually drive them away from people by dumping heads strategically offshore. Yeah, and that would encourage more boats to fish for them too. I mean, like I said, I'm about the only boat because of the amount of work that goes into it. Nobody wants to do it because there's very little money,
very labor intensive.
It's very, very labor intensive, and then there's very little reward at the end.
And there's some considerable risk too. You're dealing with large animals with lots of shit that can hurt you.
That's part of the reason nobody wants to do it because they're big, mean, nasty. They're heavy, and they're not real happy about coming to the boat usually. And we don't shoot them. That's one of the things that where they're very humanely treated. When they come on the boat, we bring them on the boat live, and I break their necks. It's instant death. Yep. It's not like they're tortured. It's not like they're mangled. And I was going to bring the other day, everybody's talking about shooting sharks, and we're going to take them out. I had a sandbar shark come to the boat the other day, and he had a big wound in his side, and he was pissed off. And when we got him in the boat and butchered him, he had a 38 slug that was about a quarter of an inch stop from his spine.
Wow.
And you couldn't even tell this fish had anything wrong with him.
Yeah.
So
tough animal.
And
I hate the thought that people are doing that.
No, it's a terrible thought, but people do it because they're sick of it. That's
the problem. Yeah. That's the problem. And how do you address that? Is that this has gotten to be so out of control in the last 3 or 4 years. If something isn't done in a regulation way, in a managed way through commercial harvest, people are already taking it in their own hands. Right. It's going to compound itself. Right. You're going to have no idea where the stock sits at that point.
Right.
And people are sick of throwing away money. Waste. People are sick of losing business, but it's a total waste. We have recreational ability to kill 2 bull sharks a day. Nobody does it because it's a waste. We don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people need to realize that most of us on the water are conservationists.
Absolutely.
They're not. Every one of us for murder.
Every one of us is here, and we had this big conversation last time. Right. Anybody that makes a living on the water, no matter what aspect of it is, or spends time on the water, wants to sustain, and has a conservation.
Right, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you.
No, I have a 12-year-old son that stands on the dock every day with me and butchers sharks with me and wants to forfeit school to come fishing because he wants to be a shark fisherman. He's dying to be a shark fisherman.
Thank God.
And to take that away from him, future, and I want his son to be able to do that. You know, this is something that my family and my wife's family, we're multi-generation commercial fishermen, and this is something it's our heritage. It's not just a job; it's a way of life for us.
Absolutely.
I want to segue this conversation a little bit into our favorite term on the show, which is citizen science.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
no doubt.
And I think it's the right time to bring it up because we're talking about you.
Well, no, he's way beyond citizen science. He's real science.
That's what I mean.
No,
we've been talking about you, but we haven't been talking about, some of this. We touched on it a lot on the other show, but I think there's some things that we have to discuss regarding citizen science today based upon what you're holding in your hand.
Like we talked about, how do we get this reply email without sending anything from the HMS when he's still fishing and they don't have all his data from this year?
Correct.
You know,
So how many years have you been doing the exempted permit there for sandbars?
6 years I've been doing the
So
sandbar
it was
permit.
going on during the most recent stock
Absolutely.
assessment.
Yep.
And I remember a set. I don't know if you want to talk about that insane set that you had early in your research.
3 years ago, which would be what, 2017?
Right. Yeah. Just as that closed.
Just as that closed, I had a setup off of Daytona. Again, like I said, I'm allowed to fish a certain number of hooks. I set 300 hooks and had 297 head of sandbars on 300 hooks in a 10-mile stretch.
Yeah, what happened with those other 3 hooks? Were they still there?
They're bit off. They were bite offs. I mean, they were. They should have sharks on them.
So that's what I'm saying. So this comes at the end where they proclaim that sandbars have not recovered.
They'll be sustainable in 2070.
I gotta interject real quick on one thing that I just realized with the 2070 number, and I think I know how she came up with that number because we'll all be dead by then.
That's right.
Which makes me think that that's even more brutal of a letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
You
holding
think she
your
was
hand
sticking
in
in
a
she
letter.
was sticking in our eye. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this won't be regulated until you're dead. It basically is what she's saying.
You're screwed.
That reply, I believe that assessment of 2070 came up probably when they originally thought about rebuilding the stock, and because of their lack of science, a lack of actual on the water data and science, that's probably a number they came up with and said, well, this is where they're going to end up being rebuilt at. They have no clue what's
That's
going
what
on.
I don't know who you are, or I don't care who you are or what you do for a living.
Right.
You're not going to predict anything in 2070, no matter what it is.
No,
Sorry.
I bet it's going to rain once or twice.
But
Yeah,
that's-
it might.
There might be a
It might be
hurricane.
wrong.
So, all right. So
might
to give some
be dead by
context here, because no one listening to the show knows what we're talking about right now with this 2070 thing.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So we obviously with the page, we've got the Facebook page. We've got a lot behind the scenes going on with a bunch of people representing all different sectors: the conservation groups, commercial fishing, recreational fishing. We compiled a letter with a lot of signatures that hasn't been sent to anyone until this morning. But anyway, I was introduced to an advisory panel member on the HMS panel via email through a mutual friend. I sent an email last week and didn't get a response. So I decided to send a follow-up response email on Monday. Hey, hope you had a great weekend. Just calling to follow up to see if you can give me any guidance with the meeting coming up. I know sharks are on the agenda. We have some presentations we want to make with letters and possibly a video. I didn't send any of our letters or any of our videos. We didn't tip our hand to what we had, but we got a response email that said the latest stock assessment completed in 2017 indicated that rebuilding is on track for sandbars. The stock should be rebuilt by the year 2070. So
Good response.
Part of me, I had a pretty defeatist attitude about this yesterday because, and I'm getting a little bit of what Art deals with, but probably 1% because I've only been doing this now since we started the page, being on the phone, talking with people, emailing, and trying to learn who likes who hates who. And there's a lot of disconnect, right?
Yes, there is.
Between all the people that are involved in this. But there's one thing that's going on right now. Everybody has a common bond that there's a major shark problem. So that to me is like inspiration that maybe something can get done. I feel like this is like the generic response I'm hoping that goes out to everybody since 2017 because they got nothing else that they want to type up. You know, I hope that's the case, but this can go two ways. This can really motivate a lot of us, or this can be a total kick to the nuts, for lack of a better term, and just say we're not going to be able to do anything. And I don't have don't have that attitude. I don't feel like with what I do in life and set my mind to, and I think a lot of fishermen are that way. So I'm hoping we can use it as motivation to press forward. And what it just tells me is we need to send all this information to every member of the panel and see who reads it and responds, and see who doesn't, see who pushes it to the side. Yep. See who's, and it doesn't even need to be a friend. You've got so much data coming in letters and pictures and videos from people that make a living on the water. Probably the majority of the people that are going to send us stuff are 200 plus days a year. Mm-hmm. And these letters that are now coming in are from Key West to North Carolina and everywhere in between. And this letter says I have an area specific problem to me. Yep. That's not true. So I can go out my inlet. Yeah. I can go out my inlet and go 100 miles north or 100 miles south from 30 foot of water to 300 foot of water, and I'm going to have a problem.
Yes, you will.
Yep. So let me. I see. I got this letter verbally from Dr. Clay Porch in 2018 at my first Florida council meeting, and I show him. He actually approached me. I was just on the council first go around there, and he approached me, started chatting up or whatever. I guess trying to figure out who I was, and I showed him a bunch of videos. Said, "Look, I know this council. Dr. Clay Porch runs the Miami lab, the Miami NOAA lab down there, who deals in the southeastern region here, primarily." And I showed him a bunch of videos. I said, "I know we don't deal with sharks on this council, but listen, there is an exploding issue. It was bad 2 years ago. It's so bad now. Something has to be done. Something's got to be done. This is 2 years ago and change." And I show him all these videos, and most of them are off my boat. A couple that buddies had sent me or whatever. He says, "Well, that's an isolated incident. It's not happening everywhere." I said, "No, Clay, this is from Key West, North Carolina. This is bad. Our primary issue is sandbars. We get some pretty consistent, at the time, bull shark interactions, but not nearly as bad as the sandbars. But it's dusky sharks." And the second I said dusky sharks, he said, "No chance, no.
Oh, yeah.
Those things are all but extinct."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I'm showing you videos of them smoking tunas in North Carolina in the summer, and they're so bad on the humps and the keys in the winter that, dude, the rod doesn't bend over and they've already eaten the damn thing. It's insane." At the second I said duskies, all right, he was all running away from me as fast as he could. Yeah. No, those are isolated incidences.
His response should have been, "Really, you're seeing duskies?" That's what it should. That's what the question
how about that?
should
I
have
want
been.
to see that. Or
can we put a researcher on your boat?
Right.
Can we?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, no doubt. Or how about, and then I asked him too, how much time do you spend in the water now? I spend so much time in the office and working that I don't get to go as much as I'd like to. But, I grew up down here. I spent a ton of time in the ocean as a young man. I said, "So did I." It's a world of difference, dude. Mm-hmm. But they don't want to hear it. And here we go again 2 years later, and I thought we were making progress.
I got a great idea.
I can tell you this with my research permit. You brought up dusky sharks. With the research permit, if I catch 3 dusky sharks, they shut me down. And I've told them, I said, "Look, I can bring you to places where I can show you dusky, and all big, giant breeding adults. They're not just little, it's not like it's a minuscule population. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And if we catch 3 dusky sharks, we're shut down.
If they explode if they explode like the sandbars, and they start to affect, I had sandbars around the boat the other day in Boca. And it was annoying, but we got lucky and caught a tuna out, and then it ate everything else that we hooked. And I was getting ready to leave, and we were live chumming and had a couple of bonitas get tied on a couple of spinning rods. And you see one go racing across the surface, and all the sandbars that are milling around the boat waiting just poof, gone. Well, that happened a month ago when a big swordfish showed up. I'm like, oh, shit, what's going to show up now? 5 dusky sharks showed up and were eating bonitas that were in the chum that we hadn't hooked. Yeah. Running them down, smoking them left and right all around us. It was the most intimidating thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, you told me that.
And if they move in, they're huge.
Oh God, they're giant. If they move in on the coast like these sandbars have, we're done.
Yeah.
You want to talk about 50% catch rate is gone. 2% because you had 10 of them hooked and there was only 9 sharks and they got everything else.
And they're here like when the water gets cold offshore and we have the upwelling offshore, they move inshore on the beach, and I've caught them sandbar or when I'm in there I'm black tip fishing, and they're eating all my black tips. Yep. And I'll have 30, 40 duskies on a set, and they're right in tight to the beach.
What was your idea?
No, but they're live. I mean, they're
live released.
They're tagged and released. I mean, they're not.
God, if they shut you down on the black tips.
It's a little bit of a comical idea or a relief, but we could just start a GoFundMe page to charter a head boat in every location from Key West to North Carolina, and we'll send all the HMS guys out to fish and let them see the shark problem that happens year round everywhere up and down the coast. At what point, if they're not going to believe the pictures, they're not going to believe the pictures, they're not going to believe the videos, they're not going to believe people that are on the water 200 plus days a year.
How are they going to know?
Well, that's a citizen science thing that they give no weight to.
Yep.
No weight to.
Come on, man.
Yeah, it's nuts.
2070.
It's nuts.
Arbitrary and blind to say something like that in that letter. It's irresponsible.
Well, here's some citizen science too. I just touched real quick on the red snapper thing. I did red snapper research, and this is where they throw stuff.
We talked about this last show.
I did red snapper research with FWC, trying to debunk the federal research and to open them up. And we did it for a year. We did it like every month. We did 3 trips for a year, and we took all that data that we got from all the red snapper. And when we submitted it, when they submitted it to the feds, they threw it out and said it was inconclusive.
Yep,
because it was just
it wasn't their data.
It wasn't their data.
Yep.
So when we talked, and he told me we talked about the traps on the way down. He was telling me about the traps that we talked about
the square ones.
I can send you video of thousands of red snappers swimming up and smiling at GoPros and swimming away from the trap. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
you can literally see them. You can see their cheeks raise up and smile.
They quit showing them at the council meetings.
Wrong trap.
So the first time that they got that footage, he just retired.
Not a trap.
They're swimming up, giving you the middle finger under fin.
There was a big sow snapper that literally was ramming the mouth of the trap and eventually swam off. And the guy, he's a German fella. He just retired though. The scientist. I don't know if you dealt with him at all.
I don't.
From South Carolina. Well, he's all time. This big snapper really wanted to get in there. Yeah, they all do, but your trap doesn't work. And they don't want to go in there. Most of them.
They don't want to hear any of that citizen science. No. And when I had that big set that year, I caught my 40,000 pounds in 3 trips. When I had that big set in 2017, and I had heard through the grapevine, didn't come from any direct science, but they said you'll never get a permit again because you just proved their science wrong.
Yep.
And I didn't get a permit the following year. Right. They didn't issue me one of the permits, and then it's taken 2 years for me to get the permit back in line.
Right, because you're basically making their funding look pointless.
Yes,
absolutely.
So that's really what it is.
See, I don't know about that because I think they get their funding. Period. Their budget is their budget, and while it ebbs and flows every year.
Yeah, but if it's consistently you're wrong year after year, then eventually it's going to get shut down.
Right.
No, Magnuson-Stevenson Act mandates that those entities exist, that their federal science communities has to exist.
There's they're going to get the same budget year after year no matter what?
Well, they put in for different things, but generally, I mean, I get to see the budget every year, and generally it's pretty comparable of the previous year, and I'm sure that they,
so there's no motivation for them to be factual in there whatsoever.
Right and wrong. I mean, aren't we all kind of driven to be right?
Yeah, we should be bound by facts, but
yeah. So I don't know.
But if they're going to, but they definitely take point.
Maybe there's other agendas at play there.
They definitely take into account other agendas. No doubt.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But if you're going to get your money anyway, irregardless of what the science says, what's the motivation?
Yeah.
I mean, they're supposed to be passionate about what they do. They're scientists. They went through they got a pretty substantial education, and
you guys are passionate about what you do too.
Yeah, well, we do it, and we do it right.
Right.
We absolutely do it to the best of our ability.
Absolutely.
We all do your do. So I'm hoping that at some point. Now, that's the problem, though. So many people that go through that education are environmentalists to start, and then with the current indoctrination that you go through at the college level, you're more so the whole political concerns, further left-leaning, and then are they all carrying that?
It's the academia culture.
Yeah. Are they carrying that into their work and saying, well... But at the same time, do they not realize the damage they're doing by allowing these populations to explode?
I don't think they know one way or another.
They don't.
Well,
they're trained. They should know.
But here's the problem, and we've had this discussion. You've brought it to point, and so has some other people. Is if we bring that to light too much, then what happens? They say, "Well, you can't fish anymore."
Right. No.
We're not going to let you bottom fish anymore in this area. We're going to close this fishery off.
Dude, they're already trying.
Fishing zone because the fish that you're catching are getting eaten by sharks, and our shark assessment says it's not going to be good until 2070.
Yep.
So they'll just let every other species get wiped out and let the apex predator live on. It doesn't make sense. And I've been warned about this with wording, having talked to Tim, haven't talked to Ben Hardig, haven't talked to you. Haven't talked to Ellen Peel from the Billfish Foundation. Haven't talked to representatives of the CCA. Look, these are groups that he can tell you, and I've learned now about the headbutting that goes on between the CCA and the Billfish Foundation and the RFA and commercial sector,
fishing,
right? I mean, this is something that historically everybody is FU, we're not helping, we're fighting you. But right now, everybody's got a common alliance, and those signatures are on a letter here that request increased sustainable harvest of commercial harvest of sharks, and to open up closed species. That's signed by all these people.
Right.
If that doesn't mean anything, and all the pictures and videos and the citizen science doesn't mean anything, I don't know that there's a chance in hell that anything ever gets done.
And these guys aren't
and that's
pushovers.
scary.
These guys aren't pushovers. I mean, you're
These
talking
old-
about
guys are
heavyweight
No.
hitters in this business. I mean, you
No,
got Ray
that's-
Rocher on there. You brought Rufus into the conversation.
Right,
You know,
and he
you-
represents the CCA as the president of the Martin County chapter. He's
Right.
100% on board. The national CCA is having a meeting today, but I was given verbal commitment over the phone that they 100%
Right.
support
I had
it.
Mike
Fishing
Lamberts on
Club.
the show last week,
So-
right, who represents the Broward chapter, and he's 100% behind our efforts, and he's going to bring it to the table with CCA and
these
be a
are
voice
people,
for it as well.
These are people that have been against commercial harvest and long lining and represent the recreational sector for a long time. They're recognizing an impact in fishing overall, and it's affecting commercial and recreational
And that's where
fishing, and that's
Sorry.
where this alliance hopefully carries some weight.
Absolutely.
But when you have a deflective attitude from somebody on the advisory panel that makes decisions that before even hearing any of our data tells me that everything's good till 2070, that's a problem.
Disaster.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
that's
a problem.
a big
Until-
problem.
Not until after you're dead is basically what they're saying.
And that's
Because they
without
wanna-
us having presented any of this
what they're trying
data
to
that
do.
we're working on for his data of his recent trips. I'm sure is not caught up to date. They don't seem to work very fast.
Well, you can't
And
really do it without your equipment either.
No.
Anything that we're compiling right now, to give them, has not been reviewed, and it's kind of like we're not even going to look at it.
Right.
Like you said, putting the fire out before it even starts.
One of the big advocates to this is Bouncer, right?
Right.
Bouncer Smith. He just recently retired, but he's basically lived a life that's connected by water for his entire life, right? And he had something to say about it here that you brought a video to the table. So we're going to watch that real quickly.
Hello, my name is Bouncer Smith. I've been a charter boat captain in South Florida for 54 years. We moved to the early 80s, and I became very proficient at anchoring on artificial reefs to catch black groupers, mutton snappers, and amberjacks. And I can't remember when we had a problem with sharks while doing that. Today, when you go to try to catch a mutton snapper, an amberjack, a black grouper, gag grouper, or any other good bottom fish, you hope that you can land 20% of the fish that you hook. 80% of your fish will be eaten by sharks. While you're drifting for kingfish and bonitas and occasional dolphin or sailfish, it's very common to have a pack of sharks attack a bonita or a kingfish that dives toward the bottom, or a bottom fish if you're lucky enough to hook one, to eat those fish while they're down deep. But in the act of catching those fish and feed them to the sharks locate your boat. And then they sit underneath your boat the duration of your drift. You're out of business. Yeah, if you hook a sailfish and start up and take off chasing him off over the horizon, you might not have the sharks with you anymore. But if you continue on the drift, the sharks are going to be there all the time, and your chances of landing one get very, very slim. The stories out of Palm Beach and the videos out of Palm Beach and my friends' evidence of what has happened is truly tragic. We're talking about hooking sailfish, and in less than 3 or 4 minutes, having packs of sharks chasing down and eating those sailfish. We're talking about tournament fishermen going for kingfish, tuna, and wahoo, and they can't land the fish to be eligible for the tournament, because if a shark bites the tail off, you can't enter the fish. And it's fish after fish after fish been eaten by sharks. We have a serious problem in South Florida where we're harvesting the eating fish, the snappers, groupers, kingfish, tunas, and wahoo, and we're sport fishing the sailfish, which draw people from all over the world to recreationally fish in South Florida. It's the backbone of the charter industry. And now we're telling people, no, we can't fish for that. The sharks will eat it. No, we can't fish for that. The sharks will eat it. We're harvesting and reducing and controlling the numbers of every species of fish, but all the sharks are protected. And when you completely protect a predator and harvest the other animals, you're going to end up with an imbalance of nature. We have got to do something to balance out the population of sharks to stay even with the other populations of fish. Thank you for your time. Please do something about the shark issue. Again, Captain Bouncer Smith.
So he said some pretty profound things right there, and that's a voice that you got to listen to.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And he's definitely one of the biggest stewards of the water that we have.
Yep. And
Very
not
conservation minded.
Yeah.
And
Well,
super conservation.
and nowadays, for sure. And Bouncer and I butted heads a little bit with Our Florida Reefs program where he was supporting full closures. I haven't heard him run down that road, like closures, full closed fishing areas a little while back. And I haven't heard him go down that road again. I think he may have realized the error of his ways there a bit. The whole give them an inch, they take a mile. And then that I do want to say that the recreational sector, I think, shot themselves in the foot a little bit with being so anti-commercial. Listen, there's a balance. And when you go so totally anti-commercial and anti-longline without really studying,
right?
Thomas isn't successful without longlining these sharks. You're not going to one by.
You can't.
I'm a big proponent in the commercial fishery being a labor-intensive, one hook, one man, not quite little, but in the dolphin fishery and in the kingfish fishery, two very clean fisheries on the commercial side when it's one guy, two guys, three guys, whatever it is, fishing a small operation, and they make a good living, as good as you do out of the ocean. It's hard. I mean,
right, absolutely.
Three witnesses to how hard it is.
Right.
Very clean. But Thomas isn't going to catch enough sharks with one man, one hook. He's got to be able to longline fish. And the recreational sector, no longlines, period, none.
It's from lack of understanding of what we do.
Exactly. But they're so pig-headed in that hopefully this opens that door to where we can have better discussions and be willing to learn a little more before we are so totally anti.
So after learning from him, I mean, we just met
a couple days ago.
I mean, we met face-to-face a couple days ago, and we've talked and engaged back and forth via text and social media since the page started, or maybe a week after the page started. But I've learned a tremendous amount from him, have tremendous respect for what he does.
Absolutely.
I've been able to take what he's told me and educated me on about how his gear fishes and what he does. And in my presentation to these organizations, I've explained that. Because I know that they're against longlining. I know that they're against this. I know that they're against that. And I've 100% said unequivocally, this is what's going on. This is how this is being managed and fished. This is the best way to manage and correct the problem that we're seeing. Do you agree? We put it in the letter, and we've got the signatures. So I think that a big part of it is the education. You know, talking to some of the people, they envision a long line. They envision something that's catching turtles, dolphin, tuna, sailfish.
And I'm an open book. I tell everybody, I'm completely transparent. Anybody that wants to know, learn, see, I'll take people on the boat. Anybody wants to see what I do, I can show you.
Yeah.
And I videotape whole trips. I have hours and hours and hours of live video on Facebook where I've gone live just to show what I do. I speak at every opportunity I can because you mentioned turtles. We are certified turtle handlers. We have to take classes to handle turtles and to let them go and to properly handle them. We take classes how to properly handle sawfish.
Marine mammals.
Marine mammal interaction.
Did all those classes.
We have complete kits on the boat to handle each individual thing.
Have you ever had to open one of the kits?
What's that?
Have you ever had to open one of the kits?
I have had to open a turtle kit several times, but that's just minor interaction. Usually they're because they're tangled in the main line. It's not because they eat my bait. It's because they swam by and tangled up in a polyball.
I thought the most unique thing that he told me on the way, one of the more unique things that he told me on the way down was the reason why he catches Goliath groupers It's because they eat his blacktip
Eat the
sharks.
sharks.
Yeah, and it's very rare. It doesn't happen often. I probably catch 2 or 3 a year, if that. And they're usually sucking on a 40-pound blacktip.
And guess what? Perfectly alive.
Yeah, perfectly alive.
No different than these charter and recreational guys that are out here roping and handlining.
You could actually go to my page and see my observer documenting proper venting, releasing.
What is that page? We'll throw it up here.
It's Thomas Osburn. Thomas Osburn. Yeah, I'm on Facebook page.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, you bring up a good point. You look at all these guys that are catching these Goliath groupers with J hooks and circle hooks and all that, and they're breaking them off in wrecks, and they're going to the same wreck and they're hand lining them and they're letting them all go, and they've got 10 hooks in their face.
Doing fine.
Doing fine, yeah. So to think that his 3 that he catches a year and how many thousands of hooks go in the water is making an impact, it's just another scam by the environmental side to say that, you know, this shouldn't be happening.
You just said about the hooks in the mouth. Like the sandbar sharks that I catch, especially in...
Can I get my hooks back?
Yeah, I would love to start returning some hooks, guys. I would really love to start returning some hooks.
Oh, man, that's great. So, all right. I think it's important. I just want to say one thing. I think it's important that everyone that's a part of that page kind of complies with our efforts and doesn't just sit there and complain and... You know what I mean? That's fine if they do. Say your piece. But the whole goal of this page is to make some progress
towards the advisory panel, not towards the administrators. And the
don't run away from us just yet.
Right. And
growing pains here.
You put up a post just so 4,500 followers, and all we got was one letter.
Well, we've gotten since I put that post this morning. We've gotten. I keep refreshing here, and we've got. Like 23 or 24 letters that have come in.
Let's triple that.
And I'm hoping. Well, Tim's got his email out there too, so I haven't talked to Tim I talked to him this morning, but we didn't talk about that. I sent him the letter and interaction that I had with the lady on the advisory panel. Mm-hmm. You know, we just got to do a little more homework. At how many different people we can present our packet of information to with the cover letter with all our major signatures from his representation and Ben and Tim, and on the commercial side and the recreational side, the conservation side, that there's an alliance here that is pushing forward. And then we have all the individual letters. You know, I'm hoping that it doesn't fall on deaf ears, and I hope that if we continue to do our homework and find the right people, we can get some acknowledgement. And I think having some representations like Tim and Fly, who represent the commercial and the recreational side on the panel, but they're not advisors. I forget what level they are.
No, they're on the advisory panel. They're not
the council members.
Okay,
council members. We're at least going to have stuff in their hands, but I want it to everybody else. So if they get an opportunity to speak and bring it up, they can go to their guy, Randy Blankenship or whoever, and say, hey, we read this. Let's go talk about this quote here from Cape Canaveral, this quote from Palm Beach, this quote from Stewart, this quote from here. This is commercial. This is recreational. This is all these people saying this is a problem. This is not an isolated incident per the email that we just received.
Correct.
It's localized. Yeah.
You know what's interesting, too, though? You mentioned Canaveral. In the day, in the 80s and 90s and early, well, by the 2000s, they were shut down, but the shark fishery was primarily handled Fort Pierce to Canaveral. I mean, there were minimal interactions with recreational fishermen back then, and the fishery was sustained. I mean, they guys were, they're like 20 boats making a living doing it back then.
There were 20, 25 boats that were pretty solid doing it.
And the recreational and for hire sector and the dive sector were pretty well unmolested. And when it happened, it was like, holy shit, that was cool. It just got ate by a shark. So the fact that we're seeing the kinds of numbers stretched out as far as we are, and I mean, everywhere you go, you're seeing insane numbers of sandbar sharks. The population has exploded so hugely, so fast, and they're sprawling. Yep. I don't think there's going to be a migration anymore.
No, there's not. There's definitely a large number of resident fish.
Yeah, that big a population couldn't feed itself if they continued to travel up and down.
Yep.
And we're seeing that. I mean, we're seeing them during sailfish season when we never saw sharks in the past, smoking us left and right. It's usually a springtime thing that we'd see one on a rare occasion. Now it's year round.
I got a letter from a guy that said he had 8 fish eaten this year, and he had 1 fish eaten before he ate his kite bait.
I had a bull shark chasing one around. It's the crazy thing. He chased a fish around on the short bait, didn't catch it. Sailfish didn't. He the sailfish. No, I've got you. And there was 2 big bulls there. Fish ended up going eating on the long, and we knew we had an issue. We blazed down and ran him down. don't think it got eaten, but the shark was trying to eat him before it ate the bait.
But as we talked about on the last show, there's really nothing that should be a predator or sail in its natural environment if it's
Outside of a
healthy,
Mako.
except for a Mako.
Right.
And that's a science-backed factual thing.
Speed factor.
And the
alone.
fact, right,
Speed
correct,
factor,
yeah. So that being said, when we're having fish, I can understand a fish after 45 minutes, a tail wrap fish, a gut hook fish, a fish that gets the line behind its gill and bleeding a little bit and creates a problem. Maybe the third fish on a multiple can be a problem. But when we're seeing it on the first jump, or we're seeing it within the first 20 seconds, when this fish has still got slack in the line from line coming out of whatever the case may be. You got a pound or 2 pounds of drag on it. This is not slowing down a fish that can go 70 miles an hour to get away from a shark. That's a problem. And it's like the one that came up on our sale the other day that we got video of. It's an average size sail, 6.5, 7 foot. You got a 5 foot shark that's getting ready to take a bite. He looks like a sea bass. It's 13 inches. It's going to eat a herring that's 12. I told Thomas, I said they're the sea bass of the upper water column. They're eating everything. It doesn't matter if they're by themselves or they're doing it with 2, 3, or 4 or 5 buddies. And as Ellen had said, she goes, the competition level is higher because there's so many around.
They're definitely a heightened aggression level because of so many sharks.
That's
a good point.
It's a great point. But here's what the environmentalist is going to say: we've caught too much of their food. That's I can see it. I mean, that's the scary part of it. Is they're going to say, well, it's because everything else is overfished. There's not enough for them to eat. That's why the competition level is high.
Such bullshit. If you look at tournaments alone, it takes more to win a tournament right now than it ever did in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. The numbers are astronomically higher. Fish populations due in large part to the regulations that are in place, though some places they need to be tightened a little bit on the recreational side, in my opinion, mahis especially. But across the board, species are doing extremely well right now.
On the commercial sector, there's historic landings of everything.
Right.
From grouper in the Gulf to bottom fish on the East Coast, there's historic landings being made. And there's a third of the fishermen that used to be.
Exactly. Now, granted, we're better at it.
Right. Absolutely.
Even on the recreational side, there's a lot. And that goes to show, especially on the recreational side, because there's so many numbers of hooks going in the water on the recreational sector. They're better at what they're doing. YouTube and all this shit has taught people to be better fishermen. And there's still more fish in the ocean to catch right now. Harder to catch them, more to catch, and they are catching more. And still, populations are strong.
People ask me all the time on my business if I think that fishing has lessened in recent years or the last 20 years since I've been doing this or since I was a kid, since I was born and raised in Stewart, in the amount we catch.
Okay.
And I said, I think the numbers are still there. I think it's diversified. You have boat to fish ratio, right? I mean, when I was a kid growing up, maybe we go out our inlet with my dad and my uncle on our little 20-foot center console, and there'd be 20 boats fishing on the weekend. Now there's 200 boats fishing out of my inlet, right? That population has grown exponentially now since the coronavirus. Right?
Boat sales
I think
are up,
the number I heard was 16 million new registered fishing license anglers in the United States. And you can't buy a boat in most places. Boat sales are through the roof. The cost is through the roof.
My father-in-law is out of stock completely,
Right.
and they're up in New Jersey. They're getting ready to winterize everything. He didn't replenish his stock, so he did better than he has in recent years.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he had a month left of sales to go, and he's like, I can't stock up because I can't get new.
I had a
can't get new
customer.
boats in.
I had a customer as a dealership in Pennsylvania, and he said we did our whole year in 10 weeks.
That's it. Same thing with them.
Unreal.
Yeah.
But so I think the future of our industry is very strong, right? But you're putting that many more people on the water and targeting eating fish that we can catch and keep that are regulated by these management groups, but we're not managing the apex predator on a proper level.
It's a problem.
It's a compounding problem. It's a compounding problem. So
did you see that video that someone just posted recently? Maybe John can find it, of the boats going in the haulover ramp. Someone did a drone of the parking lot being packed. Did you see that?
Yeah.
There was
Yesterday.
the parking lot was packed with, trucks and trailers, and they just droned up and showed the whole parking lot, and you're like, man, the whole parking lot's packed. And then they went through the whole line of cars, and it just seemingly went on forever all down A1.
And it's a
well, that's
shitty
the
little
same thing
inlet.
it's the same thing that happens here at our inlet on a nice weekend.
Yeah.
There's probably 100 parking spots for the boat ramp, right? And then you've got 50 trucks lined up and down Southeast St. Lucie
I think
Boulevard.
this was a lot more than 50.
Fort Pierce is the same way. We have several boat
Same
ramps,
way
and
in
they're all
Jensen.
packed.
Same way in Jensen,
bumper to
and it's
bumper.
great. It's great. Everybody should be getting out there and enjoying this and having a great time. However, you know, there's some lack of education. I've had some conversations with some people about this too. That, you know, from the commercial and the charter fishing industry, we see these losses of fish. We're not going to sit there and lose 20 fish in one spot. We're going to move after a couple of encounters. Maybe we catch a couple fish, then we lose a fish. Not sure if it got eaten because we got our hook back, or maybe it got plucked off, and then we send 2 baits down, we hook 2 fish, and both of those get eaten by sharks. It's time to move. You know, it doesn't always happen right away that you know what you're dealing with, because you don't always see it, especially bottom fishing. But a perfect example, you have somebody that goes out, and Rufus brought this up. He goes, you know, from a recreational standpoint, he goes, we got families that go out, you know, maybe once a month. You know, it's their day to go fishing, and they go anchor up off the Loran Tower to go snapper fishing, and they're having the best mutton snapper bite of their life, but everything keeps getting eaten. And they, you know, after their first 2 are eaten, or their first 3, that should be their limit or whatever. They should quit fishing or they should move. That doesn't happen. They catch 3 and they lose 15 to sharks.
Yep.
Right.
They stay in the same spot the whole time because the bite's good, and keep thinking you're going to get a fish past it. You can't get a 2-pound blue runner on a 50 past a shark if you really if he wants it. If he wants it, you know, it doesn't happen.
Right.
You know, you're not horse. You're better off letting that fish free spooling and letting that fish get away in its own environment. But when you're fighting a bottom fish, you don't see what's going on. You can't do that. You can't free spool a grouper. But the cobias, it works. You know, the sails, the mahis, you know, the kings, it can work and stuff like that. On times, tunas, it can work. We started doing that with tunas back in late 90s, 2000s on the North Drop in St. Thomas. It's the only way we could catch a tuna. We were catching the white bait and going and chumming the tunas on the edge, and the sharks would show up. You'd free spool, the tuna would swim off the edge, you'd paddle out there, you'd catch a tuna, and you'd come back in where all the action was. Yep. But if you tried to sit there and fight them in the mess of what was going on, no chance.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
And sharks have learned too, like we were talking about in the last one. They, in the beginning, especially grouper fishing or bottom fishing, the sharks would be chasing them from underneath.
Now they go down on them.
Yeah, they figured out. They go, things coming this way anyway.
No, they're super smart, super smart.
And they're starting to eat all the baits. Like I said, I sent a picture the other day. I caught one on a pilchard that was 3 inches long. We were using for a snapper. It ate the pilchard.
We were doing stomach contents on sandbars the other day, and their stomach contents consisted of white baits and octopus is what their stomach contents consisted of.
So
anything they can get, in other words.
Yeah, and anything they get in their mouth.
Yeah, but it's interesting, the octopus and stuff like that. You know, that makes me think. We talked about this a little bit last week. It's like, man, I was really bummed. I feel like my anglers weren't able to catch groupers this year when the season opened. We beefed up our leader from 80 to 130, and then I thought my leader was bad because it was parting. You know, after a couple pulls on the bottom, and you're just like, man, that's a grouper digging for the bottom, because you can tell the difference between a grouper bite and an amberjack bite. You pull, and the leader comes up and it's not chafed and it's parted. Maybe it's a clean bite. Almost looks like it's pulled apart, but fishing 80-pound braid, 130-pound leader, something else should break before the leader breaks, right? And then we started using the electric, and we started catching the sharks on the big bait. And now we went to using small bait and back to hand cranking, mangrove fishing and stuff like that. Now we're catching them on the small bait.
Yep.
You know,
they'll eat it all.
So, and if they're eating the octopus, they're down there rooting around on the bottom.
Yep.
Right.
You know, so they see a bait come down on the reef anywhere you anchor up the bottom fish. They're going to take advantage of that injured fish.
Yeah. I can't remember the last time I anchor fished, dude. I gave up on that.
So that's what I talked about. We talked about it the other day is, you know, is what Ellen said, you know, be prepared if you get cross-examined, so to speak, in this, as they're going to say, what can you do to change your fishing to prevent the losses? I said, well, Doug and I talked about it. I said, there's nothing we can do. You fish 30 different spots over 20 miles in the course of a day from 30 foot of water to 300 foot of water.
Burning
different
twice
types
the
of
fuel
bait,
you used to burn.
different types of bait, and all this different stuff. There's nothing you can do, right?
Right. That's all you got to say is you think we haven't tried already.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to stay in business.
Right.
I don't have a good retirement program as a charter fisherman. I gotta fish till I can't fish anymore, right? So that's you got to sustain what you can catch.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about like steps forward, right? Now, obviously we have our group on Facebook, and hopefully people get involved in the right way and they listen to the messaging that the admins are putting out there about what to do and how to do it, and what the programs that we're kind of getting set up, like the things that we're talking about, and how to stand behind them, whether it's writing a letter and doing a signature. But, you know, you've got a meeting coming up, right?
In September. Yeah.
In September, and you got another one 3 months after that. We're trying to put some things together, but we've got a group right now of guys that we said it before in this show too, that they're no slouches, right? They're very important people in this industry that are fully behind this, but we're going to need more than that.
I think so.
And that's just the leadership of the movement. It's not necessarily
we have to get political prowess behind it. I almost feel like. I mean, I don't know. I was curious. That's why I tried to call Timmy Palmer, because I know that when he got the buoy fishing passed, I mean, there's laws and legislation regarding that. He jumped hoops to discern the long lining for the sword fishing. Doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. It's passed. It's out there. There's plenty of people doing it, making a good living, and there's still plenty of fish being caught daytiming. I mean, I don't know what the assessments are, but people are still having good fishing either way, and it's very target specific, clean, as well. It's very clean fishing. It's monitored gear constantly. When I did it for 2 years, we drove up and down the string all night. That's all we did, up and down, and that way if we caught a small fish, we could release it unharmed. Our bycatch was minimal, a mako shark occasionally, maybe a couple of other sharks periodically, but most of the time they got bit off. But the direction that it has to go, I feel like just even reading this letter we got back, and we'll see where the meetings go, is to get some political backing up and down the coast. And I think at some point, the dollars and cents of the lost commercial revenue, the lost tackle, the recreational impact, and the charter impact on the financial side, those figures have to be thrown out. I mean, what's sport fishing or fishing in general is $1 billion industry, I've heard, in the state of Florida alone. Yep. You start taking away, and the impact of the sharks is taking away what people can and can't do, and that money starts to go away, somebody's going to start to open their eyes. But it needs to be opened sooner than later, and maybe the only route to go is getting other government involved.
Without a doubt.
Definitely other government agencies got to get involved. NOAA's got to get behind it.
That's who we're getting shot down by right now, but...
I think that having the CCA as a big proponent might be of great assistance in this. Just at
They're
least
good lobbyists.
Just to have a good voice.
Keep American Fishing. I've got some good contacts with the lobbyists there that have the ears of many government officials, and we just keep pounding that pavement and hope. There's so many ups and downs to it, though. Like, so devastated seeing that letter yesterday, because that was the same shit I was hearing 2 years ago.
I would love...
It's probably this. I would love you to pull the email up and show me it's the same exact email.
No, it wasn't an email. It was face-to-face conversation.
Copy and paste.
It didn't say 27.
2 years ago. We'll just change the date on the title.
He just said it was isolated incidents and it wasn't real.
That's total BS.
Total.
I'd love to get a scientist on this show to have the conversation.
I know a bunch of biologists with FWC that would come talk.
You do?
Yeah, but I don't... But again, though, people want to crush FWC, dude. They do so much good. They make their faux pas. They make their mistakes.
Right. But the amount I've been hearing that they've been battling federally.
Oh God, yes.
They battle
the benefit for the angler blows my mind. Like when I was having my conversations with the CCA guys the other day, and they brought up the shark feeding, and I said, look, I there's a big concern about the shark feeding. I said, but I will say this, and I said I'm personally responsible for chumming in my area, and I've seen the shark behavior change, chumming for sharks for cobias. I've stopped doing it because I see the detriment. We didn't have a cobia fishery here like we have in the years past recently, and that could be cyclical. It could be a problem with the sharks. I don't know.
Well, it came with the sharks because they moved off the rays, they moved off the wrecks. Like we used to have
I haven't seen a marine ray in 20 years.
We used to catch them off the big cow patties all the time, and I still see the cow patties on the beach.
See them on the beach, yeah.
And then they used to move on the wrecks that the cobias did when the sharks weren't around. They're strictly riding shark backs now.
Which is crazy. And why only the bull sharks?
No, they're riding tigers too.
Oh yeah, they tigers. I've seen them on hammerheads.
I don't see them on the tigers here. I've never seen one on a hammerhead, but I've strictly
seen
the bull
on
sharks.
hammerheads too. It's cool shit.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I think there's so much more like aggressive shredding type feeders. When a sandbar eats something, it's bang bang gone. Like I think that it's such a pack mentality. Much like when you see a group of sailfish, they don't T-bone very often when there's a pack, right? And it's going down. Mm-hmm. Well, sandbars are usually in such large groups that they try to get it down before their buddy's going to try to take it out of their mouth. Well, the bull sharks, they shred and tear, and they'll try to eat bigger things. Yep. And there's so many more pieces coming off that the cobias are.
That makes a lot of sense.
That big dude right there is where I can get my pieces.
Right.
Where
Makes sense.
it doesn't. And then the sandbars are kind of wild, dipping around quicker, and that bull shark's just lumbering. like
You
a
guys are
turtle or
giving
a
me
ray.
new ideas for paintings right now. You know?
Yeah, good, dude. I live
I'm
for
starting
that.
to
I
get
love
some
that shit.
visuals here.
Well, you know what it is? Come ride with us. I get to see this shit on a regular basis, and that's how you learn to be a better fisherman, right? You see
Absolutely.
it and you kind of educate yourself on it. Well,
Did you just ask me to come fishing with you?
anytime, come on.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna work your ass.
Come on, come
It's
jump on a
record.
longline boat.
John wants to come too.
There you go.
I'm allowed to, mates. Come on.
Go with Thomas.
Hey, you want some paintings that'll blow your mind? Come get on a longline boat.
You'll see some cool shit for sure. For sure. But that's the other thing too is they've moved off the leatherbacks. I'm seeing more leatherbacks in the last 10 years.
With no cobias on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
With no
They're all
cobias,
on the
yeah.
sharks, dude. It's a
Yeah.
better food source for them to ride those bull sharks and take that greater risk. Because we've all seen the second something bad happens to a cobia that's riding a bull shark, his ass is tanked.
I'm gonna do a
Hook gets in his mouth.
painting
Done.
of a tiger shark eating a sailfish with a cobia behind him.
I've never seen a tiger shark eat a sailfish, just the bull sharks.
I'm just saying.
But we have seen a
These
lot
are
of
the
tiger
kind of
sharks.
things I'm seeing in my head right now
I had a tiger shark swim up in the
with a squid coming out. of it.
August tournament year before last, and I see him coming. Oh shit, we're about to win this tournament hands down right now. It's a cloud of cobias on this thing. They peel off the shark for a second. We're throwing everything we got live, dead it, and then right back to that tiger shark, and down they went. Never got a bite off any of them. Cloud, giant. Clearly, that tiger shark had just smoked something. And those dudes' bellies were full. But so much cool stuff out there.
So
But I want my ray fishery back, so please.
So
I know.
who's got Trump's cell phone number? Should we just call
I
him?
do right here. So we're talking about
Dude, he talked about it in the address the other day.
I
Yeah,
know.
we saw-
That's
saw
the
it on
thing. It's
Facebook,
like,
yep.
man, how do we not take advantage of this opportunity
Absolutely.
right now? We need to get a letter directly to there.
I can.
But we can.
Yeah, we can
Absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah.
We definitely have one degree
We have a
of separation
contact.
there.
Yep.
So I see no problem with that whatsoever.
Yep. Through his son, who
Yeah.
loves.
Yeah, well, we have other
South Florida
channels
fishing.
as well too,
Yeah.
so but I can't really
Yeah.
openly discuss. But
Yeah,
we
I know.
definitely have a direct conduit, so we'll get there. But I wanted to definitely talk about some things.
As if he doesn't have enough on his plate. Like you.
I want to talk about some things too. I mean, we have some clean water issues, right? Right, but we don't have to bring it up in this episode. I don't want to go down that road. But that was one of the things I wanted to talk to Brian Mast about.
Oh.
And then perhaps maybe Brian Mast can be someone that we can discuss some things with too. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
I think he's a good avenue.
Yeah, and we definitely think that we have a huge affinity for him here on the show. We have a great love for Governor DeSantis on this show. And these are
He's done some
definitely
great stuff.
And I definitely want to kind of say that this is what modern conservatism or modern conservatism is, right? It is really, what they've done for the state ever since DeSantis has gotten elected to be advocates for clean water and preservation and conservation of the environmental aspects so we could all flourish and thrive in the environments. Not only just for recreational speaking, but for commerce as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
these guys are advocates for a situation, so maybe it can be something that'll be helpful for at least, because our search is for balance here, right?
Yep.
So we're not asking for anything
Sustainability
extreme.
for everybody.
Sustainability, balance, sustainability for everybody, and that's kind of one of the reasons that we renamed that group, to that, and
Yeah. Ideally, we end up with Thomas and 9 more Thomases making. Even, you can make a living at 300 hooks, so I
Absolutely.
think it could be better than that. But
Absolutely.
with a reasonable set, and let some guys make a living, people make a living, try to be somewhat
What's
PC here.
the other thing though too? You have just to benefit the whole commercial sector. Even if there was opposition to putting, and there's 7 permits, so I don't know how many they would have to add.
That's just the
regionally.
sandbar research
Yeah,
permit. There's
okay.
a bunch of directed shark permits.
But the
that
guys
nobody
aren't
I've
fishes.
got one right now.
Nobody fishes them.
Yeah, nobody fishes them.
So there has to be an incentive. The incentive is to open the sandbar because that's where the market is. And you were telling me that if you didn't have the sandbar to sell, then trying to sell anything else was very challenging.
Yep.
So
Well, regulations have also concerned about the fish houses. They've made it so hard for a fish house to handle sharks that even fish houses don't want to handle them anymore. So it's very few and far between that there's somebody that's going to handle them because there's so much work involved in them.
Yep.
where are we at with that bill that was on the table? There was a
It's
certain-
gone really quiet. there's so
Yeah.
much else going on right now.
Do you know about the bill that we're talking
The
about?
fin bill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course he does.
Yeah,
I'm sure you.
And
And
you know where that is?
That's about
why I
don't
bring
know
it
where
up.
it's at, but that's about the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. To make us pitch the fins overboard, and again, that's all part of the poor science about what we do. we make money on the fins because it's a resource that should be sold and handled. It's not where we make our money. It's not, and that's what they're pushing.
Well, they're just trying to discourage any commercial shark harvest of any kind.
Absolutely. Trying to make it difficult.
Yeah.
So, but you don't know where the bill is right
I don't know
now?
where it stands. I know it passed in the House, didn't it?
It's like up for vote.
Yeah.
So maybe it's on the, who knows? But I'm going to actually research that a little bit more. And
the House being what it is right now, the Senate ought to shoot it down, I think.
Yeah.
But
right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. But that is, if that's honestly, like, that's kind of got to go away. That's
totally got to
because
go
that's going to
away.
be very
Absolutely.
damaging. That's going to be the most damaging thing that could happen to our efforts right now.
No,
if
absolutely.
that bill goes through.
Yeah.
They would be going backwards instead of the hope to push ahead.
Right. Exactly. It's going to. You think we got an uphill battle now? That bill goes through. It's going to be a heck of a lot tougher, especially for guys like you.
Absolutely.
Mostly.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Talking about you're talking about 18% of your income.
Yeah.
Poof.
Yeah.
On all trips.
every
there's
trip.
a few species that the fins aren't of any value.
Right. Well, we don't even fish
target
for those.
them.
We don't
Okay.
target because there's no money in the meat either. So
Okay.
and that's like a gummy shark and stuff like that. Nurse shark.
Is there any value in the meat of nurse shark? I don't know anybody that's ever eaten one.
None at all.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're protected. They're protected to an extent too.
Yeah. Silly little bastards.
Gummy shark.
Yeah.
So we got a big battle.
Yeah. We got a big battle.
And I'm too fat and
But
lazy
you know
to
what
climb a
though?
hill.
I think we got some good teammates.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Absolutely.
I think there's a good core group of people.
Yeah.
I think what we don't want to lose sight of is that we have attention of a lot of people that have always butted heads. That's the most. Again, I'm going to keep going back to it. That's the most intriguing part to me is as I learn who's involved and what's going on, having never been involved with it on any kind of political level before or regulatory level. Learning who's butting heads and having a conversation for an hour or 2 hours over the phone about their personal experience. Because a lot of these people that we're talking about are fishermen themselves or have been on the water, except for the scientists, right? These people that we're dealing with, the groups, the representations, the Tom Twyfords of the fishing clubs that is representing 1,400 recreational anglers that says, before we even got started, sent a letter that shark depredation with bulls and sandbar sharks was a huge problem. Right? They have past council members that are members of the club. They're speaking for 1,400 people. I would like to think that we can all come together on our page and speak as representatives, despite the name change for the 4,700 members that are now on there.
Let's rename it the Commercial and Recreational Fisheries Alliance or something like that.
Whatever.
Something
We got
that-
26 days to
we got
think about
26,
it. But right now, I don't want to worry about that
doesn't
right
matter
now
about the
because I
name.
want to worry about how to get the attention of the proper people before September 5th and before September 14th or whatever it is. And I still think that somebody in our group last night, it was probably you or in a separate conversation, said that even though the HMS meeting's first, it's still very important to approach the South Atlantic Fisheries Management Council because if we can get them to understand it's one agency pushing another, we're staying on top of them.
It's noise. It's at least noise. Just
So,
keep pushing.
It doesn't seem like it's something that's going to happen overnight. So I would say everybody wants to fasten their seatbelts, but
Right.
I think that what we all know as fishermen is the problem is going to compound itself and get worse, and it's going to get more noise. So as long as everybody stays united and continues to pull people that they know from around the country that are being affected from the Gulf to Key West to North Carolina, and we're starting to get posts from the Bahamas and the Caribbean. I mean, there's guys posting stuff on there from the Bahamas and their issues that they're having. At some point,
One of our permits is fishing all the way up as far as New Jersey. So I don't know how far these fish go north, but there's a boat fishing out of New Jersey.
Sandbars in New Jersey?
Sandbars fishing in New
Holy
Jersey.
shit.
so at some point you would think that if the vast majority of people that spend time on the water are speaking to one cause, that it's got to get some kind of recognition. Somebody with common sense, I would hope, has to help make this prevail.
Yeah.
The science seems so skewed, just like anything we see, like the red snapper. And
I'm starting
that's
to
the
have
problem.
trouble even calling it by that name.
Well, yeah,
No,
it's
that's the
it's
problem.
not-
The
it's
science
not-
is so misleading
it's
and
not even
misguided.
science.
How can it be science?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, how does science predict something 35 years from now? And then 3
you
years
remember
later, you
science
send me
saying
that email.
The world was going to end by now, like
Right,
9
yeah,
times.
2020, right? When was Y2K or what? Are we all supposed to die then?
They're doing their math based upon the Mayan calendar.
And I don't know if this is right to say, and if it isn't, they can go ahead and edit it out or whatever. But what's happening and what's going to happen in a probably historically compounding manner is everybody's going to take matters into their own hands.
See, now we're getting somewhere.
And
That's the truth.
And,
It is the truth.
it may not make an overall picture, but it's going to clean up where you fish for a while. You start killing sharks and letting them sink to the bottom. And it's something anything we want to do. Recreationally, we're allowed to take 2. I don't know anybody recreationally that kills 2 bull sharks.
Do you know anybody that's killed one?
I don't know anybody that's killed one.
Well, you and I touched base on it on the way down, talking about how we both received messages over the last few days about people talking about the ledge being less active with sharks.
Right.
When we pulled into the parking lot, I got a message from a friend of mine that said they're back thick as thieves.
Right. So we talked about that. It was a short-term solution. You and I had this conversation.
It timed out great for our tournament.
It's
Still
cool.
did it.
It's
No, it
cool
worked
that
out.
everybody's saying thank you, and it's made a big difference. But that difference, they're smart. They feel the pressure. They're going to move. You get some heads and livers down there. They're going to be gone until they're gone. Then they're going to come back, and you're going to have the problem again.
And they're going to be pissed off when they get back.
So we're talking about all this kudos for everything that he caught, right? And the population control, because we're not going to use the word damage. The population control that he's doing in an area helped fishing for a week.
Yep.
Maybe 5 days. Maybe less, because how many people have fished in the last 3 days?
And that's upwards of
Right?
5,000 pounds that was caught.
right. So, which is what, 50 or 55 fish, 60 fish,
It's about 110 head, 120
really? That
head.
many?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's talking 55, 500, or 5,
dressed.
Yeah,
Dressed.
Yes.
taking 40% of that animal.
Okay, so, but still, I mean, it's going to be right back to square one.
Right.
Like I said, it's good for a few days. So, it's already happening. That's the problem. And it's something that we've talked on from day one that we don't want to have happen. One, I'm not going to go out there and do it with charters. 2, I don't want to waste a resource. I want it handled in the proper way. I want it managed properly. It's not being managed properly.
Right.
If we have the attitude of going and killing and just destroying a resource because it's affecting us and the proper people aren't taking the proper actions, that sucks that we have to do that.
Yep.
And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to do it, and there's people that are already doing it, both divers, fishermen, and it's recreational and commercial. The attitudes are very poor, right now towards them.
Yep.
And it's going to be scary if nothing gets, not scary. If nothing gets done, it's going to be sad.
It's going to be
what's
sad.
going to happen.
That's a good word. Sad.
It's going to be sad what's going
Unfortunate.
to actually happen. And we've gone back and kicked around the shark tournament idea, but I can tell you, we may have you'll have one shark tournament, and then something will get passed that you can't harvest the 2 bull sharks anymore.
That'd be very bad publicity, and nobody will want to host it.
That's it. We that's been a problem. But getting rid of it in a legal manner is a problem. Like even donating it to a fish house for them to do something with it, we're not even sure that that's legal.
Pretty sure it's not.
So they can't sell it.
And you don't want to cut into guys like Thomas's
correct.
livelihood,
Correct.
But there's room. I mean, there's
plenty of room for
in
it,
the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a demand for the meat. There's everything I catch is sold before I hit the dock. So I mean, it's not like it's a hard avenue to go down to sell the fish.
Yeah.
If you get the right fish houses. Like you say, there's a lot of fish houses just politically concerned.
And that's why the licensing, the cost, the harassment to deal with it is a nightmare. Is a nightmare for everybody. And that's part of the regulations we all face, and that's what most people don't understand. Is they think it's just a free-for-all commercially, and it's not.
No.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle, so hopefully we can find a way around the hill. Right? And
Capitol Hill.
Capitol Hill. Exactly.
I'm afraid so. Yeah.
I mean, we're going to need some advocacy on the science side. And we're going to need some
better science. Yeah, I mean,
well, that's what I mean.
Science ought to come off as Thomas's boat. That's
Absolutely.
it. This is the only place that any real data should be collected on their end.
Right.
On our end, listen to us. We're seeing it. We're videoing it. We're taking pictures of it.
Mm-hmm.
Pat and I talked about it on the way down, and the person that wrote the theory on sandbar sharks, and this is going back 7 or 8 years. She did her college thesis on sandbar sharks, and her thesis was that these sharks reproduce once every 3 years, which and they produce 15 to 20 pups once every 3 years. You're talking about an animal that's probably the oldest animal on the planet. when they were being heavily fished, they managed their population within themselves. They're smart. They're naturally able to do this. These fish went into a hyper reproduction mode, which is why we've seen an explosion in population. And all that data is compounded through what I do with the researchers and the science that goes to the laboratories and how they determine all this and why that's not being looked at more heavily instead of getting an email like you got right there that says 2070. I mean that's absolutely ludicrous.
Absurd.
It's negligent.
No, it's
that email
and this lady that wrote that thesis, she went to college in Idaho. I mean, how does she even know what consists of the water?
She dissected a shark in 7th grade.
Yeah, and she went to Atlanta and saw those sandbars in the fish tank there. And that's what I'm talking about.
I got a headache.
Yep. All right, listen, we're going to wrap it up here. I think this is a pretty good episode. I think we had a very thorough discussion about it. But there's
so much more to talk about.
Still a lot of. Well, go ahead.
No,
don't let me stop you. But,
I mean, we can rekindle it after the meetings.
Yeah, I mean, we got some meetings coming up that we're going to try to make some headway on. And once again, I thank you guys all for your efforts.
I'd love to come back and be part of it. I mean,
absolutely.
You are.
Thomas, you're part of it. You can come back to the studio anytime.
As far as I'm concerned, you're our science base,
exactly.
Outside of citizen science.
We need to have him involved as much as possible because the science is right there. That's it.
As much as
the interesting thing would be to find out of the 7 permits how many have been fished, how many times, and see what other data is out there besides his. Out of the 7 exempted permits that were put out, if they're just sitting idle, how do they take that data into consideration? Right. I can assume how they
counting those hooks.
Right. I can assume
not caught fish.
Right. I can assume that they're not looking at the 0 fishing days. They're just assuming that non-caught fish on the permit.
Mm-hmm. When they realize that a permit's not been fished throughout most of the year, they usually take it back come November, and then they give it to a guy that has been fishing, such as myself, and then I'm allowed to sandbar fish from November till the end of the year, and it could be 3 or 4 permits. How am I going to catch that amount of fish in that amount of time? When this is supposed to be stretched out over
especially during the winter
period.
time,
Right, over a year-long period, we're given 40,000 pounds to catch, and now all of a sudden you're going to give me 80,000 at the end of the year to try to catch in 3
and then if
weeks.
you don't produce that, then it goes
just
towards
not there.
negative.
Dude, that happens.
Oh yeah.
You call us and we'll have you can't go 24/7, but we got enough bodies that could.
Oh no doubt.
We'll get you 80,000
I'll go 24/7, guys. I promise.
I also want to say congratulations to the people that cut your lines.
Yeah, good call.
Because what they did was they made you aware to me.
Right.
And
they rose huge awareness to the
gosh
cause.
darn it, I'm going to make you famous because of this, right?
Yeah.
Or at least I'm going to try my hardest, right? Because we're going to prop you up, or we're going to educate the world as to what you do.
That's what I've been trying to do
and
for
how
years.
important it is.
I speak at every opportunity I can just to raise awareness to what I do and the cause. I mean,
So
what a nightmare right now.
Congrats, line cutters.
Yeah.
You put a spotlight on Thomas, and we're
absolutely.
Gonna,
I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody that donated to the GoFundMe. It was absolutely amazing. I've never had that kind of outpouring for anything behind what I do, and it's about to well me up and bring me to tears. The support from you guys, it's amazing. It really is.
You got everything you neneeded.
Absolutely, and more. Right, Tim Pickett offered. He said, "Bring my boat down to Fort Lauderdale, and LP would fill my drum." Pat and his GoFundMe has produced every possible thing I could need. And I'm right back fishing. I was right back within 3 or 4 days. I mean, I sat at my house. Me, my wife, and my kids sat at the house and built gear and crimping and pressing and cutting and we went right back to work. So
fantastic.
This man's got 4 kids to feed too.
Yep. 4 kids and 8 pit bulls.
Oh, Jesus.
Each kid has 2 bulldogs.
Right. So every one of them line cutters is welcome to come over to your house anytime with those pit bulls, right?
Well, there was an individual that placed my name, my address, and my online, and I invite you. Come on.
Yeah, come on.
Come on.
They call it doxing nowadays.
Yeah,
they doxed you, which is disgusting.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty poor.
Yeah,
personal
pretty
attack.
Poor. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to come down here on the podcast. So whatever.
I think the biggest thing is to get as much support behind him and the other guys that are making a living doing this as possible, because they're the only ones that can control any of it. You know, and we need to give them the support they need and the
And do it
data
right.
and the
They're the
science.
guys who
and
do it right.
100% proper.
I'll tell you what, I said this on the last show. I had my commercial permits when I started. I had some commercial permits when I started my business to supplement my income. It was the biggest pain in the ass of my life. Filling
Keeping up with all
filling
that,
out
then.
logbooks and all the bullshit. Then you forget to fill one thing out, and then they won't send you your new logbooks, and then you got to fill out days that you didn't fish. Come on, man. I didn't fish today. I'm going to send you all the information when I fish. You're going to send the information when I don't fish. You know, and I give credit. You know, I give credit to all these guys that do that. There's many a days where I've been fishing on my boat, and I go, I would not make a very good commercial fisherman because I didn't catch anything today. You know, so
There's some days we think that too.
these guys,
I'm not
these
so good
guys
at
are out
this.
there. They are grinding at it and keeping the food out there in the restaurants and in the for you to go pick up, or mom or grandma to go pick up from the fish house and have a fresh fish dinner. And it's something that needs to be applauded and continue to be supported.
Yep, I agree. 1,000%.
Thank
So all right, so we're gonna probably do this again to keep it, because this is going to be an ongoing issue, right? So until we
Better
can
set aside like 6 hours for the one after the meetings, right? We're gonna have a lot to say. We're gonna have a lot to say.
That's the thing. Yeah, exactly.
And a bottle of Advil.
So we're probably going to be revisiting this in about a month, I would think, right? Or maybe a month and a half.
October.
October-ish. You know, we'll probably do another update on this, because we used to say like the two causes on this show were supporting our veterans and clean water, right? And we just added a third cause to this show, I think, that we're really going to try to tackle. And
Sustainable shark fishing.
This is sustainable shark fishing, exactly. So I want to
shark.
thank you, gentlemen, for coming in once again. Thomas, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank
you're
you. It's been a pleasure with all
absolutely
you guys.
outstanding today. You brought a lot of knowledge to the show. We really, really appreciate that. And Patrick, all the efforts that you've been doing have just been
Phenomenal,
tremendous
dude.
and phenomenal.
It's a whole team.
Yeah, but really though,
Yeah.
you've really been the one, running the flag up the pole, and what
Without
I
a
mean.
doubt.
Yeah, so
They
it's
got a lot of grease on the pole, though. I keep sliding back down that mother.
but you've been doing outstanding, and
Really
I
have,
just want everyone to just recognize the hard work and the passion that you've been putting.
And Doug and
Yeah, absolutely. Doug, I mean, there's so many names behind this. They're on this letter. Art, Doug, Skip, Ray, Thomas, Ben Hardig, Tim. I mean, there's just, like I kept saying when we had the little debacle on the page, look, there's a bunch of people that are helping and making decisions and pointing in directions, and we're all trying to do what's best for everybody involved. I made the decision about the name, so if anybody wants to get shitty with it, they can do it with me.
I should have caught it though.
If you want to leave the group and you don't support the group, then get off. Stop telling me you're doing it. You're like
Right.
you're like the people that said when Trump got elected,
I'm
you were
gonna move
gonna
out of the
leave.
country.
You
Right.
didn't leave.
I differ. I differ on that. Stay.
I would like you to stay, but
Suck it
Give
up,
us a
Snowflake.
chance. Give us a chance to go through our growing pains and get right. We're gonna get there.
It's
I
worth the
agree with-
conflict right now.
Absolutely.
It's worth the conflict to go through the growing
growing
pains, like you're
I
saying. Because
agree with it.
you know,
But let's just be constructive.
History's
Spin it around.
history.
Don't,
Let's move
don't waste
on.
everybody's
Right.
time on. Don't waste anybody's time on something that can't be fixed right now. Let's move forward with the problem at hand. Let's devote our energy, our effort, and our anger towards the problem. Let's.
You wearing Corbinas? Sorry.
Huh?
Your glasses.
No, they're coasters.
I know, but they're Corbinas, the frame style. I think.
No, these are what were these? These were triple tails. I think these are triple
Squirrel.
No,
Squirrel?
fantails.
Dude, I love. Oh, that's my mate wears fantails.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
There's some.
my favorites were triple tails, but they stopped
What's
making
the
them. These
deal
are
with the
fantails.
70% off thing I saw the other day?
That's bullshit. That's fake.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all
fake
fake.
news.
Yeah, fake news. Fake news. Sorry.
Okay.
Couldn't help it. I love sunglasses. Some guys like watches. I like
guys
sunglasses.
gotta get some Maui Jims. Man.
No chance. Coast takes great care of me. The lenses are amazing.
They do
Amen.
take great care of you, but that Maui's a hell of a company.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
You didn't strike me as a wood grain kind of guy.
No, this is my style. I don't wear these on the boat ever. These are just for style.
My
around.
turtle shell, man. My turtle pattern. That's me, boy, all the way.
All right, we're gonna go.
Oh shit. Okay.
All right, so thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Hopefully, we can make some quick progress here soon. So, all right, your ego is not your amigo, right? Always do your best and let God do the rest. Or my art laughs every time I say that, right? If you're in the market for a truck or a vehicle, a car of any kind, hopefully it's a Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram, and you can get yourself one at Joey Accardi, right? Offering some great deals right now. Go reach out, go see them. If you're hungry, I know you are. Art, where can they go to eat some food?
Dude, you put me on a spot like that. It's right down the street from my house, and the name and draw a blank instantly.
Papa's Raw Bar.
Papa's Raw Bar. Thank you.
Papa's Raw Bar. That's where you can get
I
the
damn near
best.
throw a football to it from the house.
That's it, right? And then they're going to be opening up Papa Amigos here shortly. They're having some issues with the COVID opening and stuff like that, but they'll get through it. Troy and Cassie do a great job. And we'll give a shout out to our friends at the FFMD who are doing their raffle for their truck.
People.
Yeah, good people. So they're going to be raffling off their the truck and the cart and the boat that we wrapped here soon by the end of the year. So support that great organization. So, all right, we're out. Listen, no matter where we are, no matter what you're doing, don't ever forget, we're always connected by water. Right.
Good man.
Awesome.